The Fox City SCORE chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning and welcome to Biz Talk. I'm your host, Rick Sense, and along with me today is special guest host, Mary Rhode. Mary and I have worked together in the past, so I'm really looking forward to working with her on this broadcast today as we go forward. And Mary, why don't you give listeners a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Rick, for asking me to co-host with you here today. I am the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for On Broadway Incorporated, which oversees and programs the Broadway district in downtown Green Bay. And also part of my role is handling the marketing communications for the soon-to-be Green Bay Public Market, which is located right in the heart of the Broadway district as well and is slated to open next year.
And that's a really exciting project. Are you really excited? Is there a real buzz in Green Bay about that project?
There's a huge buzz. Yes. Certainly it's been quite a journey, as is any major construction project these days. But it's been such a wonderful honor to be a part of, and just a lot of general excitement, a lot of curiosity around the public market, and definitely some amazing visual changes that are happening to the current building right now. So it'll be, as I mentioned, in the Broadway district, but we'll be taking over an existing building that was about 40 years old. And as of today, it's completely gutted, and we are starting to lay out what the rest of the construction plans look like.
Well, all the best to you and the rest of the team at On Broadway as you move forward with that project. And it's wonderful having you on, so thanks for joining us. And this morning we have a very wonderful pair of people that, for those of you that live in Green Bay or Appleton area, you've been exposed to them, hopefully, by the wonderful baked goods that you've had from their place. We have Ben Cadman and Celeste Parins from Voyageurs Bakehouse joining the show this morning. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us. We're super thrilled to be here.
Yeah, good morning. This is
good
exciting.
Morning. Great. Well, could you maybe start with a just brief, what is Voyageurs, I can't even say it today correctly. Sorry about that. What is Voyageurs Bakehouse and how did you get started?
Yeah. Basically, at its core, we are a sourdough bread bakehouse or bakery, and we produce naturally leavened sourdough breads of various types and sell them to the public. And yeah, why did we get started? I was a home baker, a way to de-stress from, corporate job. And I used to practice making sourdough on the weekend like many people do. And I had done that for a number of years. And basically that hobby turned into a habit. And now we have a business. That's the real short.
That's a short version
of it.
We're living in Australia, and Ben had a chance to take a few months off and became a very passionate sourdough baker at that time. Mm-hmm. And then we had then we found out we had a little baby on the way, which brought us back to my hometown here in Green Bay. So after myself being away for 10 years abroad in multiple different countries, Ben having never lived in the U.S. whatsoever, we decided to move back here, and I brought him all the way to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And it was an opportunity for us to give it a go as entrepreneurs. We had both always worked as the right hand, either, for myself, right hand marketing person to solo entrepreneurs. I was in the health and wellness industry, Ben in more startup. We both had an amazing exposure to this, startup entrepreneur. And when we landed back here in Green Bay, we first knew that we wanted to give it a go of becoming entrepreneurs. And the question became, what? What are we going to do, and why are we going to do it? And that's how it all started.
So yeah. You're here, and you know that you're going to be entrepreneurs. So what led to the choice of the bakery side, the sourdough world?
Yeah, it was, I had plenty of time on my hands. We were half looking for jobs here in the US and half looking forward to our baby being born. And I had all the spare time to make bread. So I started to make more of it and give it to people in Green Bay, and everyone really enjoyed it. So, and they kept saying, you should sell it, you should sell it. And, I think the first opportunity to sell it came up at Ledgestone Winery. They were doing like a little market pop-up where you could bring whatever you're selling and a table and sell whatever you've made. And I think I made, something like 10 loaves of bread at home and brought them down there, and they sold in a flash, and did the same thing the next week. And then kind of the small snowball effect began at that point.
It was one of 3 business plans that we had sort of like just on the bare, as we could say, back of the envelope, sort of wrote out some things. One being bread, one being, do you remember them? Mm-hmm. One being a gin brand, something else in drinks, and something else in cheese. We had 3 criteria that we knew were super important to us as entrepreneurs, and what were the criteria that needed to land for us in our business. One being we wanted to make something with our hands. We had both been in this digital world where all we used our hands for were typing on our computer. And that led to the second one being that we wanted to meet people face to face. We had also worked in this digital world where I had generated hundreds and thousands of customers for businesses, and same with Ben. And we never met them face to face. It was this transactional online, passing. And we wanted to have that more fulfillment of knowing and meeting our customers face to face. So it was 1, make something with our hands, 2, meet our customers face to face, and 3, we wanted to be active and on our feet. My 4th was that we wanted to create something very experiential. So I had no background in baking or food. Ben had no professional background in baking.
But I had worked in hospitality earlier in my career, so I had been around hotels. My dad had his career in hospitality, so it was always a passion of mine to create various food products from scratch. But we had never taken that to a larger scale.
Yeah. And so with that, then, that was kind of the core. And then I kind of came around it with the surrounding, coming from personal growth, personal development industry. I also wanted to create a really strong experience. So we led with Ben's skills on product, and then my skills of branding and experience have been supporting around that. And that's something that now we share very much together. But that's sort of how it was born. And why sourdough and why was that the business plan we chose was because, 1, Ben had his experience and had become a very, very, very good home baker. And 2, we realized, well, there's the cottage law here where we could be baking at home. We just needed to buy a few pans and some flour, and we could bring tests to market. So I think one of the things that Ben's always been really, really skilled at is taking action and just doing, like bringing a product, testing it, getting feedback, going back and revising and continuing to improve that process. And I would say that we've done really well every day of just like bringing something out there, like not waiting too long to try to make it, quote, perfect. And I hate to use the cliche phrase of like done is better than perfect, but sometimes in an entrepreneurial journey, I would say that's true. Like you can sit and drive yourself crazy trying to make something perfect, but really you need to bring it to market, get some feedback, see what people want and like, and keep going. And that's what we've, I would say consistently done every day for 6 years now in the journey.
Mm-hmm. Right. What was your biggest challenge? Go ahead, Mary.
So you started with sourdough and you were baking in your home, and then you started to, explore with the Ledgeview event. And I'm sure that led to farmers markets and things like that. So how did you decide, or at what point did you decide, okay, we need to do more than just sourdough? When kind of was that transition to like, we need to start thinking a little bit more beyond sourdough?
Yeah, that was quite a long time down the track before we expanded into other products. Getting out of the main thing after baking at home was getting out of the home. Where do we bake now to scale the business? To be able to do a farmer's market, it wouldn't be possible baking at home bread. So across from where we lived at the time was a school church, St. Jude Church here in Green Bay, and they had a kitchen which we could rent out, and we did a deal with the ladies in the office there that after school had finished and they've used the kitchen, we could go in there and use the equipment and bake more bread. They had 2 old convection ovens, and I could bake 19 breads in an hour. And so I would go in there after the school is done and start my baking process. And it started 1 day a week. And then, a few weeks later, it was 2 days a week. And then, 6 months later, I'm there 5 days a week, and I'm putting mixers in and all sorts of other bits and pieces. And we used that space for 18 months, and that really gave us the platform for scaling, and it launched our confidence that we could do it, we could bake more, and that the consistency of the bread was there. If we made 2 loaves at home or we made 100 there, they were coming out the same. And that's where we started our wholesale business. We did farmers markets. And at that time, using our digital background, and this is really what gained us the customer base, was delivering to people's homes. So we would basically, because we knew how to launch a website and we knew how to build a list of customers via e-marketing or social marketing, we would basically, communicate to those people, say, hey, this is what we're baking today, and we'll make it really easy for you. Yes, our loaves are $10, which in those days were expensive 6 years ago. But we're going to bring it to your house for free. And so how could you refuse? So we would basically send that email out, collect all the orders, go bake, and then throw it in our car and drive around.
I distinctly remember the conversation that we had. We asked each other, we're like, okay, what is going to be the best way to get this bread into people's hands the first time? What's going to be the best way to get this loaf of bread into people's hands a second time? So this is where that combination of farmers markets and our home delivery worked amazing, right? Because we knew that if people tried our bread, they would say, oh my gosh, this is unlike anything I've ever had around here or seen around here. And so we needed to get that sample into someone's mouth. The farmers markets worked amazing for that. At the farmers market, we would collect emails, like true old fashioned style of like having them handwrite on a piece of paper, no joke, which is hilarious to me because I used to manage like 2 million email subscriber lists where we were running massive ad campaigns. So it was hilarious to me to be like, actually, let's do this the real old fashioned way with a piece of paper. And then we would follow up with emails, and that's where then we have completely organically built our list, from scratch. I've never paid for a lead, and we communicate to those people like friends. And so we communicated to them twice a week about what bread we were making. And so that part 2 is, how do we get this bread into their hands a second time? The answer was clear. It was like, we are just going to figure out how to drive around the city and deliver bread that is still warm onto people's doorsteps. And it, like, I feel like really knocked the socks off a lot of people. And it was unlike what people had seen around here before. And it became, we've always leaned into word of mouth. We still have spent very little on marketing, very, very little. And we allow that word of mouth to happen.
Yeah, that's where we got to. But then it came to a point anyway that we were in that church kitchen that obviously I think, they were maybe like, okay, well, this isn't a bakery. You're going to have to go and find yourself your space. And then,
taking over.
18 months in, we had a conversation. Of course, we were generating some cash, but we weren't exactly generating income. So for us, it got to the point where, and we were hiring a couple of hands at that point as well to help us out. And it got to the point like, okay, if we're going to turn this into a sustainable business that, that we can hire people and that we can live a comfortable life, then we need to open a bakery. And that's when that search began. And at that point, that's when we started to reach out for help to various organizations and more detailed business planning and things like that.
But then back to your question, Mary, is that we didn't actually diversify our product offerings besides like flavors of sourdough. So we would do ancient grains, lots of different diversity of types of sourdough bread in its rustic, large loaf fashion. But only once we opened our bakehouse in March of 2020 did we actually diversify to have a few other pastry offerings. And we've always stuck very strong to our passion with sourdough for many reasons. And so therefore it was a diversification into pastries of brioche and other things, which we've now continued for.
I think it's very easy in any food business, and it's probably true in even manufacturing and many things, to have the you have the ability to do so many different types of products, but quantity doesn't really lead to quality necessarily until you have massive scale, perhaps. So even today, if you come in our bakehouses, the menus are really simple. It's like 5 breads, 5 sandwiches, 5 different coffee drinks, and 5 pastries. And we'll have seasonal stuff here and there, but keeping true and core to those products. And a lot of the recipes haven't changed since we first started, because that daily consistency leads to a better quality product. And that's what keeps your customers coming back. Like bread, for example, is a staple food. And so, if you have a great product, it doesn't need expanding or changing in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this would be a great time for. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
This is a great conversation, and I hate to be the one that says this, but we're going to have to take a break, everyone. And we'll be right back after this, and you're listening to Biz Talk on WHBY. Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. I'm your host, Rick Sense, along with special guest host this week, Mary Rhode from On Broadway up in Green Bay. Just before we get back to our program, I'd like to just spend a few minutes talking to you about the Score chapter of the Fox Cities area. Fox City Score serves an 8-county area with offices in Appleton, Oshkosh, and Fond du Lac. We have about 45 volunteer mentors, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, human resources, retail, best practices, and many, many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and or to learn more about the Fox City Score chapter, please visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. You can learn more about how the Score chapter can assist you with starting and or growing your business, and you can complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to Score. In a few days, a Score mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, Score is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. And to support small business people, Fox City Score is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you would like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference to their success. Go to score.org/Fox Cities, click on the volunteer button, and fill out the short application, and we'll get back to you to explain more. So thanks again for joining us on Biz Talk. And now, Mary, if you want to pick up where we are left off in our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the products that you offer. And for those that listened early on, sourdough was what started it all. And I think those of us that have visited one of your bakehouse locations, we certainly have our favorites. But I know you guys may have your favorites to make as well as to eat. So what are some of those favorites and kind of certainly both things to make, but also some of your customers' favorites to eat?
Well, what's your favorite, Mary?
Every single time without fail, I will get, and I'm not going to say the actual name because I'm probably going to butcher it. So I will say it's the chocolate croissant.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. That's a top seller. That's for sure.
Between that and the lavender cookie, it's kind of a toss up for me.
Seasonal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely to make the sourdough process is really interesting for anyone that does it at home. But the transformation from flour to water to this end product is kind of a magical, mysterious thing because it's all controlled by the health of your sourdough starter. And so obviously ours has been going 6+ years now. Its name is Jude. Really important for anyone out there that has one. If you want to make good bread, you need to name your sourdough starter. And really at the core, I love making bread and making sourdough and seeing that fermentation process happen before your eyes over a number of hours.
But quick, what was one of your first sourdough starters' names?
Beyonce. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beyonce. She was the Australian starter. No connection there, really. But
Oh my gosh.
His first.
She made beautiful bread.
She did make beautiful bread.
Yeah. There you go. So, and Jude is called Jude because it was started at St. Jude Church. So, and that's where we took the name from. But, it's really easy. All the sourdough starter is flour and water. And you just feed it and you give it time. And in a week or two, it will start to ferment. And then you just keep that going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which one do you like to make the most? It's been a while since you've been in the day-to-day of making bread and pastry, but you did it a few weeks ago.
Yeah. It's so hard. I mean, I probably like making the simple country loaf the best. I mean, at its core, we use a lot of local grains. And so that one's made with spelt, which is an ancient grain, rye, local whole wheat, this is all grown by a farmer called Heartland Craft Grains in Lodi, Wisconsin. And so they grow the grains and mill them on stone mill them on the farm themselves and deliver to us every week fresh.
So we know them. We get to catch up every couple of weeks about their family and their business. And it's just like, this is the essence to me, one of the pieces that is so fulfilling of starting and running a business, ticking that box again. If you were listening in the previous part of like getting to know the people that we're working with, talking to our customers, and that is a customer of ours. Yeah.
And then it's sea salt and water, and that's basically it. And then the magic of the sourdough starter. And so making that, it's a pleasure to do that.
I would have to say that my favorite pastry to make and eat is actually the same product, because I love our cinnamon roll. It's a purist cinnamon roll, and it's not smothered with cream cheese frosting. That's just not our style. But I love it because it is just like very cinnamony, which I know is not really a word, but
it's a word.
It's a word.
It works.
And I love rolling them. Like whenever I know that we've got a lot on in the pastry department, I'll be like, hey, can I do the cinnamon rolls today? So I still love doing those. There's something about it that's really satisfying.
Unique about our pastries, they're all sourdough based too. So people have a preconception that sourdough is one particular bread, but it's not.
Or a flavor of bread. People think it's a flavor.
It can be any product that you need to make rise.
It's a technique.
Yeah. So all of our breads and all of our croissants and all of our pastries are all used making Jude. And
Jude is the leavening. So she's the leavening power. She gives rise and life to all of our bread and pastry. Whereas in a cake, for example, you can use different types of leavening agents as baking soda, baking powder, or sourdough, or a combination of all of them. So we're a feminist business as well, a little bit. The power of the Mother Jude. Love her.
Also, my favorite to eat, though, I mean, there's been multiple over the years, but I think I've had these, when your eyes roll back into your sockets, and you're kind of like a shark, and it's the first time you're going to eat this new pastry we've developed. And I run in the back hallway, and I have a food moment, and there's a couple of them. There's like the first time we made the almond croissant, and it was hot out the oven, and I ate it. I was like, okay, this is like a tick the box of milestone for the business. So that's mine, almond croissant.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is making me very hungry, so I think I'm going to take a break and run down and get a croissant. But no, just kidding here. But this would be a great time for us to take our next break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. Welcome back to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. I'm Rick Sense, along with special guest co-host today, Mary Rhode from On Broadway in Green Bay. And we've had the great pleasure of talking with Ben Cadman and Celeste Parins, the entrepreneurial team behind Voyageurs Bakehouse in Green Bay and in Appleton, and soon to be another additional location, but we won't mention that just right now. So, coming soon. So, Mary, you want to go ahead and pick up the conversation where we had left it?
Yeah, we're going to circle back to your original business plan. So you mentioned kind of in our first segment that you guys had 3 that you kind of started with, but you narrowed it down to really sourdough being that chosen business plan to kind of move your move your idea forward, right? And move into kind of what your product focus was going to be. So in looking kind of at your original business plan, and I'm sure most entrepreneurs put some goals into that initial business plan. And do you want to talk through some of what those goals were? Have you stuck with them? Have they been kind of the driving factor for you as you've kind of continued to grow your business?
Yeah. And I definitely want to touch on who were some of the pivotal people and in there. And Ben will do that. But I first want to kind of bring our attention back to like, how did we even come up with this business plan, and what was some of our driving forces in there? And I think we really drew upon a lot of inspiration from a thought leader named Simon Sinek. If you're in the entrepreneurial world, you'll know this name. He has a very famous TED Talk of Start With Why. And that always stuck with me, and was a very, very clear driving factor for us in the building of all of this. I think that, the phrase the bigger the why, the easier the how. And in our business, and I think every business, you are every single day, there are decisions that you have to make and figure out how to do something. How are you going to run your business? How are you going to treat people? How are you going to design your space? How are you going to make your products? How are you going to do all of this, right? So it's all a series of hows, right? And how you do everything or how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And for us, coming back to that why directs how we do all of it. And I think we have worked and been accountable to ourselves on being crystal clear with that why. And that why is multifaceted. Like, it's not a super clear, just one single statement. Like, in the beginning for us is, we always wanted to bring a sourdough product to the community. We wanted to source locally. We wanted to make sure that we were using traditional practices, never cutting corners, and being extremely transparent about the product that we're making. That led to, how were we going to do any of it? So we talk about these things. We've designed our spaces accordingly. We've pulled back the curtain to allow everyone who comes into the Green Bay Bakehouse to see exactly how we are making a product. There's nothing that we are hiding here. We want you to see the people that are making the product for the food that you are eating, because far too often in this food world, the people that are making the product are unhappy. They're not well. It's not being made with the best practices, cleanliness, etc. And this holds a level of accountability for all of us in our business. And we also wanted to create an atmosphere where it felt like you were walking into what I say in my little kind of woo-woo way of like walking into a big energetic hug. I think I really believe that the energy that we hold as individuals and all of us in our business is a reverberating, vibrating effect that when people think of our brand or walk into our spaces, that they have a similar energetic feeling with an experience with the brand. And so therefore, this why has helped us to guide a lot of the how decisions, right? Because when it's like, okay, now we need to sit down and look at a business plan. Now we need to put now let's talk the rubber meets the road. Like, it's all great to have these ideas, which that's probably in our dynamic as entrepreneurs together, and husband and wife and parents and partners and all, Ben and I, is that, we kind of know our lanes, and I am really excellent in this, like, let me find all of the connecting dots, and Ben's great with the rubber meets the road, right? And so we did that, start with the why, and then now it's time to figure out how. And the how was what Ben incredibly orchestrated together, and connecting with various people in the community, and really amazing creative coming together of the funding, which I think is like a really important piece for you to talk about, because I think a big conception of like, okay, I have this idea, but how am I going to do it? And there's a lot of ideas out there, but really it's about, can you execute and can you wake up and do it every day? And again, this is why for us, the why is so important, because we need to wake up and enjoy and get started in doing it. So yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
And not only that, but you need to motivate the people you've employed to work in your bakehouses as well. And they need to have that same energy and be able to give the customers that great big hug energy that you hope for every single day.
Yeah, it guides all the decisions from what are we going to make to who are we going to hire to how are we going to design the space. All of these things are very, very much directed for being super clear on the why. So yeah, Ben, if you want to kind of talk about like, how did you put it all together? Because this was then really your amazing doing with my support.
Well, I mean, if we're going back to building the first bakery, I think, funding was the big part. How we're going to afford to do it. Setting up a restaurant is super expensive. The failure rate is highest out of any industry. Profitability, the margins are tiny, and all these things that you hear about.
So why would anyone do it?
And then on top of that, a bakery, wake up in the middle of the night when everyone's sleeping to make the product.
It's and have kids at the same time.
So yeah,
this is a good idea.
It's kind of mad, but there's a lot of help out there. Business planning, David Staufficker at SBDC, is at UWGB. He's the one that I did the first business plan with, which then I could take that to the city of Green Bay and get money from the revolving loan fund. And I think different cities have different programs like that. And that's the route that we took. The way that I got connected with all these people was I did a talk which was called, I'm going to forget it. It's like you have
1 million cups.
1 million cups. So it's a national program. They have one here in Green Bay. So I have 6 minutes to talk about my business. And during that meeting, that's how I met David. That's how I met Wendy at the city of Green Bay. And that's how it all came together. We needed to create some equity in our business and put some money in ourselves. We didn't have any. So we did a Kickstarter program. That's where Celeste's marketing expertise came in, and we managed to raise $28,000. 32 in our Kickstarter, which gave us the equity to get the rest of the money. And then I guess the rest is history, kind of. But that's how we got started with the financing to build a bakery. And then the expansion came in time. It was a very organic, unplanned way, even though we plan a lot. But it wasn't like, oh, okay, in 2 years we're going to open another place. In 2 years we're going to open this next place. It's when opportunity just came up and arose, and the timing was right. I think there's so much planning you can do, but a lot of it happens at the right time for the right reason.
So how do you interject that into your business plan to be prepared for that moment that is going to present itself and you want to be able to jump? What do you do in a business plan? Put yourself in the position to do that.
Yeah, I think the importance for it, especially in this industry, is like before you do your next big move of growth, I think is ensuring that you're truly profitable and that you really understand your numbers. I think that at the end of the day, there's no point of doing any of this if you're not going to be cash flow positive. And without that, then you're gonna fail, unfortunately, and that's what happens to many businesses. And so far, we've been fortunate enough that we haven't done. But again, this industry, it doesn't matter if you're 10 years out and you've been successful. There's so many pitfalls along the way. So it's ensuring that you know the numbers, you're passionate about looking at the numbers, and you understand your profitable products and maybe the products which are more the ones that grab people in, and then, those kind of different sales tactics.
I love quotable quotes, and I've had many, people along the way. And one of our business mentors along the way said, learn to love your numbers and your numbers will love you back. And that's something that when I look at like, okay, how do we still need to grow? And it's like, okay, keep loving the numbers, even when they're hard to look at. How can we love them? How can we enjoy looking at them, be problem solving and forward thinking about how to improve and optimize versus being scared and choked and not willing to look at them. Okay. And I think that like a big part of this too, is that we have really sought to see our business as an entity. So rather than it just being that a business is, this thing on paper, right? An LLC corporation, like not dynamic. We actually, and this is from where I learned it from Tony Robbins, where it's like learning to see your business as an entity, see its growth stages, understand it as that. And right now, we talk to Voyageurs as an individual. And I think that there have been major points throughout this process where, an example where we were financially strained. We were also, ironically, overstaffed. We were probably the only business at the tail end of COVID that was overstaffed. And it was getting hard. It was getting like choking financially, like, ooh, that was not a time where it was nice to be looking at the numbers. And all of a sudden we had like 6 people transition out of the business in 6 weeks time, which for me, like my ego was crushed. I was like, I'm never going to be enough. How is it that these people are like, I can't provide, all this like self, BS. And what I started to realize was that the business was saving itself. The business was showing up and people were transitioning, all for positive reasons, nothing negative. But it was hard. And I think that as we have grown and these opportunities have come, there's always a new business plan being made for that, in that expansion, to say, okay, plus the original that gets revised. And we go, does this make sense? And then we go and we ask the business, like, either, is this the direction? And if it is, like, I would say that I very much believe in, like, either it's going to be a really hard process and you're going to meet a bunch of hurdles that you have to jump over and it's tough and it's hard, or things are going to continue to open up and reveal themselves as a somewhat of a flowing process. And I think that we had a pivotal moment, if we talk a little bit about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks for us, earlier this year, where we had an opportunity to open a 3rd store. And timing exactly may have argued like, oh, we are really like, we're full in our current space. Do we need to grow? Is this the right timing? And things continued to flow. And that exact same thing happened with how we stepped into our 2nd store. And we had a notable moment, in talking about some of our planning. We try annually, and our goal is to do it quarterly, but we make sure it happens annually. And we sit down for a strategic meeting together, and we go through a few different key exercises that we guide ourselves through. And we had a conversation with the business about, like, what are our fears? What do we need to listen to the fear? What is this fear telling us? How can we plan accordingly? So we took those fears. We said, okay, what if this happens? What's the plan? And so that's the sort of dialogue that we really practice in having with the business to keep planning. And I think that now, our answer at that time was, yes, we are doing this, which is, you want to share the news, Ben?
Oh, yeah. Our 3rd store is going to be in De Pere. So it's on Broadway in De Pere, which is actually our home city. We live literally 10 minutes walk from the new location. So we're really excited to bring that to our own community. And it's going to be right downtown on Broadway. Like, we're on Broadway in Green Bay. We're on Broadway in De Pere. And it's been a big passion of ours for all of the locations. We're always in the heart of downtown. We want to be part of the revitalization of our downtowns, and I think that's just really important. And I think a bakery has been for centuries a part of the center of town. So
again, this comes back to the why. It's like why we do what we do. There is a rhyme or reason to it. So yeah.
So you also have the location in Appleton. You want to just maybe spend a moment talking about that location a little bit?
Yeah, it's a beautiful building. It's on the corner of College and South Appleton. It's kitty corner from the City Hall and the Children's Museum, which many people will know, and opposite Chase Bank. It's a beautiful old building. And we moved in there where we opened early 22. We did a full year build out because the building needed a lot of work. And if you've been in that space, it's just it's aesthetically very pleasing, and we're very proud of it. Yeah,
and I think that, again, these other 2 supporting stores to our main production facility, which has the storefront as well, is to continue to give that little micro dose of joy through bread. And I talked to our team about this in our onboarding. I'm like, yes, we're a bakery, but don't be fooled. What are we actually here to do? We're actually here to facilitate a little moment of presence and where we can possibly give a microdose of joy to the people that come in, and hope that, we can just be that beacon of light that continues to do our little part in these communities that matter to us. And I think for us, these 3 locations feels very well-rounded. It feels, that we can facilitate that little bit of change in these communities that are amazing, and do our little part there. So, yeah.
All right. This is a great time to take our last break. You've been listening to Ben Cadman and Celeste Parins from Voyageurs Bakehouse, and we'll be right back to Biz Talk on WHBY after these messages. Welcome back to Biz Talk with SCORE on WHBY. We've had a great program this morning, and just really a very interesting story from Ben and Celeste at Voyageurs Bakehouse. But before we continue with the program, I'd just like to take a moment to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with SCORE to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Hailing & Associates. Hailing & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan for taxes, thereby helping you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Hailing & Associates, personal connection, positive results. A special thank you to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. If you aren't already subscribing to Business News, you should. The paper is delivered biweekly and contains relevant and useful information about the business community in Northeast Wisconsin. And finally, we'd also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation and support of Biz Talk and Fox Cities SCORE. So, Mary, if you want to pick up the conversation for us again.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're kind of closing out the show here today, Ben and Celeste, you guys are such a dynamic duo. You've built such a beautiful and wonderful business that so many can taste every single day, right? And how wonderful that is. When you're speaking to someone who is at that beginning stage that has those multiple business plans in front of them, or may not have any at all, what is that one piece of advice that you might offer to them?
Yeah, it's a good one because there's so much advice you can give over time. I think like one that stuck with me over time is the 3 P's: is passion, perseverance, and persistence. And always making sure you have plenty of all of those 3 things. And so obviously a passion for your product and a persistence and perseverance, because you're going to have hard times, you're going to have great times. And, if you follow those 3 P's, I think you'll be in good stead for giving an idea of yours a good shot.
Mm-hmm. I think we probably know what one of mine is, which I've talked about, which is the start with why. Because again, when things get rough, you return back to, okay, why am I doing this? There are going to be a lot of people with a lot of opinions on how and what to do, but being clear about your why. And I would layer that with one other thing is know your why and do it with the utmost integrity, because it is easy to get sucked into not knowing how to handle a situation, what to do, and just always returning that voice to how can I show up in the utmost integritous way and treat people that way in everything that you do. And I do believe that people will support and be forgiving and be there to show up for you when you're acting in integrity.
There's always a good how I built this. There's a podcast on NPR. There's a good last question there that always says how much is down to luck and how much is down to hard work. And I think it's a blend of both and timing. But at the end of the day, it's hard work, and there's no like sugarcoating. You can talk about your business all the time, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of hard work, and that's what we've put in the last 6 years.
But do something that you can do it joyously as well. It's hard work, yeah.
Perfect. So before we go, I was so excited to get back to the conversation. I forgot to ask, how can people get a hold of you, and what's your website address, and where are your locations again?
Yeah, please. We would love for you to join our email list. We call them our Voyageurs Insiders, and you can visit our website at www.voyageurs.co. And also, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Voyageurs Bakehouse. We post all the delicious specials, upcoming things. But I will say that the people on the email list get first dibs on all the seasonal specials and special offers. So come join us there, and come see us in Green Bay, Appleton, and soon in downtown De Pere, coming in mid-July.
Well, Ben and Celeste, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and Mary for guest hosting as well today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, great to have you on. And you've been listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and this will be available in a podcast. Check out our website, and we'll catch you with our guests next week. Thanks for listening.